What is up, everyone, and welcome to Drop In, where we have open, authentic conversations about all things mental health, including light in the dark, navigating seasonal depression. Dr. Jackie, what up?
Hey.
Question.
Okay.
Before we get into seasonal depression,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you 60 seconds
Okay.
to convince me why your favorite holiday is the best holiday.
Ooh.
Time's ticking.
Oh, God. Okay. Christmas is my favorite holiday. The reasons why.
Paint me a picture.
Okay. This is the time of year when everyone is in a joyous mood. You listen to music that makes everybody happy and smile. You get to decorate and see all of these really pretty lights and all the creativity that comes with it. You get to drive around neighborhoods and see all of these different decorations and lights and enjoy time with your family if you actually like them. And if you have kids, you get to see them light up on Christmas morning and see the joy and the magic that comes from that. The end.
Well done, and you hit a lot of the points that I thought you might. 60 seconds on the clock for Halloween. We have such a hard time as human beings to get out of ourselves. This is the time to be anybody you want to be. And it brings together the whole community, giving out sweets, treats, all the things. It personifies playfulness, fun, staying up late, but getting to actually know your community members, knocking on their doors, seeing a face, giving each other compliments, but just getting out of the rigidity of our egos and getting to play any person character. The movies are spectacular. Who doesn't need a little magic, whimsicalness in your life? And scene.
Well, you got to rehearse that and think about that.
It still wasn't that great. I'm thinking of more things I could have said.
I think that was a pretty solid attempt at convincing me, though.
You hit the high points, though. I was like, oh, God, she's going to hit me with the Christmas music, which is just undefeated. You're going to hit me with the Christmas lights, which is just so joyous. Like,
there's just something about the holidays.
They're just, so we're hitting on the high points of the holidays before we talk about seasonal depression, which used to be called seasonal affective disorder.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the name change? Pro, con, indifferent?
What's so funny? I actually feel like I use these interchangeably because I originally learned the DSM-4 and then learned the DSM-5 like in two different grad programs. Like my master's was DSM-4, so it was seasonal affective, and then my doc was DSM-5, so that was seasonal depression, or like depression with seasonal features.
Right.
So yeah, I'm kind of indifferent, I think, because I use them interchangeably, even though that's probably not technically correct.
The acronym SAD really just...
It just hits different.
It just kind of came full circle. Like, it was just like, that's saying major depressive disorder.
It doesn't have quite
type.
the same ring to it.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But things are always changing, and we'll discuss why probably the name change to sort of streamline things. But in the U.S., about 4 to 6% of people experience major depressive disorder, seasonal type. But another, which is important to this conversation, 10 to 20% experiences winter blues, which is having some of the symptoms, but not all symptoms, to sort of meet criteria for major depressive disorder.
Yeah, I believe that.
This is an interesting part as we get into sort of what's happening here. The prevalence rates increase with distance from the equator.
That was the piece that to me was so interesting looking at the research.
So in Florida, where we both live,
On the equator.
Nowhere close, though. As an
Kidding.
American, it feels that way.
Yeah.
But if you actually
We're
look,
so far.
we're still so far from the equator. So far.
Way closer than what I used to be growing up in New York. So
When looking at this data, I had to remind myself the difference between latitude and longitude. Like, I had to think that
yeah.
through because I'm like, wouldn't it be longitude? And I'm like, no, that's the
No. Yeah.
long. It's looking at the latitude going across.
Yeah.
Like almost mirroring the equator.
Mm-hmm.
But Florida, which is 27 degrees
Mm-hmm.
latitude, has an incidence rate of seasonal depression of 1.4%.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland, which is 39 degrees north, 6.3. Something interesting is about to happen, which we'll discuss. New York, 40 degrees. Incident rate, 4.7. Less. 1 degree more,
Mm-hmm.
but almost 2% less. We'll get into it.
Yep.
But New Hampshire, 43 degrees to the north, 9.7.
Mm-hmm.
So again, New Hampshire all the way up there, 43 degrees, 9.7. Florida down here. I wonder what part of Florida. Florida is long.
Yeah.
Are we talking South Florida?
Right.
Where did we get the 27 degrees? Because we're way down here in South Florida. But anyways, Florida, 1.4%. Thoughts about this?
I'm actually not surprised by this. And the reason I say that is New York is so highly populated and there is so much to do that I think there is this kind of confounding variable that we tend to be doing more things and being more social and having a lot more to actually do. So I think that actually kind of reduces the risk or buffers some of the risk for that.
And that's exactly what the authors were kind of talking about of like with seasonal depression, it's not one thing, but we know in general, the further you are from the equator, you're getting less daylight, and your days are shorter. And that is one of the big sort of contributing factors
Right.
of lack of sun exposure and shorter days.
Right.
However, one of the things they talked about is sort of what you're alluding to of like these sort of cultural variables of people getting out and about, getting out of their homes, being active, and the weather in these places.
Yes.
Which I'm not from the Northeast, but the fact that Maryland is sort of more, but a degree less. I'm with you. I'm like, oh, is it the big city, as it were? And I know not everyone in New York lives in freaking Manhattan. I'm not that ignorant of a Midwesterner, although I used to think that. Everyone from the Midwest just assumes if you live in New York, it's just
you're in the city.
You live in Times Square. What's that like? That's what I thought growing up in Ohio.
That light exposure.
The light exposure. Well, we're going to get into that as well. But the weather patterns, sort of the cultural influence that can sort of help mitigate some of this. When you think about some of the symptoms that come up, what do people start to notice as we seep into winter?
Yeah. So I think about reduced energy. I think about being more tired, lethargic, slowing down, increased appetite or changes in appetite, increased sleep or changes in sleep. I think about a lot of the slowing down effect. And I think the difference between the winter blues versus actual major depression or seasonal depression, the difference there is the severity and the intensity, right? So in order for that to be clinically significant and diagnosable in terms of a quote disorder, there has to be impairments in functioning in daily life. And so once it gets to that degree, then we're looking at more of like that seasonal depression kind of threshold as opposed to the winter blues, which a lot of people, yes, do experience, and you'll experience a lot of that slowing down. But the biggest difference is in terms of the intensity.
Yeah, that clinical significance that we talk about a lot. Because yeah, it's more common, certainly especially when you're talking about upwards of 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. It's a lot of people, especially
Yeah.
when we're talking about mental health things. 20% of people are noticing some symptoms of this, slowing down, some fatigue. You might see slight changes in mood,
Mm-hmm.
some irritability, restlessness. Like it can come in many forms.
Definitely.
But when it's to the severity and the magnitude that it's impacting your work, your school, your relationships,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we're checking the box of you're having a major depressive episode,
Right.
which is part of the reason why this has been lumped into major depressive disorder and not sort of a standalone thing. Because we're like, oh, yeah, this pattern is happening seasonally for you.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's all the symptoms that we'd see in a major depressive episode.
Right. And especially when someone has recurrent episodes of depression, and it tends to only come out during these like winter months, that's pretty indicative of that same pattern.
It's so interesting because I'm thinking back of 23 years growing up in Northeast Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
like on the lake effect snow. If you know, you know. If you don't, read a book. Gray for 6 months.
Yeah.
Maybe not actually 6 months, but it feels like 6 months.
Right.
Not completely inaccurate,
Mm-hmm.
but almost half the year, it's just so gray, so overcast. So many amazing things about Northeast Ohio. I'm not hating, but I would experience this.
Yeah.
Like, I remember it so vividly of just being like blah. And you're sort of surfing through the holidays and you get the sort of the up, but then you're just down. January and February,
Brutal.
brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
what percentage of that experience that you had up in New York is the reason you live in South Florida?
A pretty significant part of that.
Statistically significant?
Statistically significant reason for moving down to tropical Florida.
It's truly 80% of the reason I'm here.
Yeah, same. Honestly, because similarly, I always experienced that slowing down, the not wanting to do as many things, not wanting to be outside, hated being cold, and especially the light. That was the biggest factor for me. Absolutely biggest factor. It's freaking dark out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're like, okay, I still have like 6 more hours of like awake time, and I am just wanting to curl up in a ball in my bed and never come out. So I remember very vividly my last year in New York, and I was working like a full-on lunatic like I did at that point during my master's program, and I was, I think, working 3 jobs and going to school at the same time. And so I was in an office basically from like 8 a.m. until 8, 9 o'clock some nights. And there were like weeks that would go by that I didn't see daylight because as like an intern, you're basically in an internal like office, aka a closet with a couch in it, right? So I'd go into the office, it would still be kind of like dark out, or even if it was sunny, it was cloudy, like you said. And then you come out of the office and you walk to your car, it's frigid and also dark.
It's so true. And I'm glad we're talking about light. And again, for me, that was the factor. I love to snowboard. I could handle the cold.
Mm-hmm.
And like, look, it's interesting, this impact. When you look at temperatures in places that have a lot of cloud cover, they don't get that cold.
Right.
But if you look at some, I'm going to use the word barren, open sky kind of places like Nebraska, it gets so cold there
Yes.
because they have less cloud coverage. So they're getting more light, which again, I think is a huge factor. Like the light is the factor.
Yes. And the sun, like the difference between living in New York in the winter versus when I lived in Denver in the winter, I think Denver had like it's known as like the sunny city or something, or like
300 plus days or
yes, it's
something
like
like
the
that of
sunniest
sunlight.
place.
Yeah.
So even though it's cold, it's still sunny. And like if it snows all morning, the sun comes out and all of a sudden like you feel like it's spring in the afternoon and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is fine." Like it's just a different kind of feeling.
Absolutely. And we know the impact sun has on our mood, on our vitamin D levels, and also our circadian rhythm, our sleep wake. And that's why one of the interventions that has science behind it is light lamps, 1,000 lux plus. This wasn't a thing when I lived in Ohio,
Yeah.
but so many of my clients use the lamps and find it to be helpful.
Yes. And I've heard the same thing. It's so interesting. And by no means am I recommending this.
I
I
know
am just saying
I
this.
know exactly what you're going to say. Lord have mercy.
I went
I
tanning
knew it.
a lot
I
when
knew it.
I was in New York in the winter months. And I swear something about either the light, the warming effect, whatever it was about that
Right.
helped me a ton. And I've heard this from other people too. Again, 10 out of 10 am not recommending you going tanning.
This is not a recommendation, folks. But
I think there's something to like say about the light and that exposure to light that helps to mitigate a lot of those factors.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. I knew you were going to say that. Like, again, not recommending. That
10
was
out of 10 not recommending.
That was an era we lived in where so many people were just like reckless tanning.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, we
God.
get in any dermatologist on this show and they'd be like, please, God, no. But I'm with you. It's like, what are the variables there? And I don't know if the lights in those things are 10,000 lux or more, maybe, but I hear you that there's factors that might, I could argue a lot of things of like even you getting out of the house, experiencing sort of this intense warmth. Like there's a lot of confounding variables there.
But now they actually have like beds that are light beds or red light beds. So they have something to that effect that doesn't have all of like, the damaging effects of actual tanning beds.
Yes. And this is something with my clients that live in these cold places who are having these symptoms. That's the whole point of this episode. We're not suggesting every winter, every person. No. Is this a large part of the population that's experiencing some of these symptoms? Absolutely. But starting out the morning of like getting in their light time has been so helpful for so many of my clients.
Yeah.
Because it's stimulating. It's day. Put it right in front of, your mirror where you get ready. Put it right in front of the computer. Get in that time. Simulate the day.
Right. Yeah. And those are shown to boost vitamin D, serotonin, all of these chemicals that we are lacking in those winter months that are leading and contributing to this seasonal effect. It's so interesting, and I don't know if you saw this in the research too. In places that are warmer climates, there is actual research that kind of flips the script and says that summer months can actually cause seasonal depression or have an association for places that have warmer weather.
Well, you're trampling on our listener questions that I did not prompt you to. There's a bit of a dynamic.
So funny.
There's a bit of a dynamic on this show between the two of us of, I'm just going to say it, your ADHD gets you flying in here like a cannonball. I'm doing so much prep. You do your prep.
Yes. But just in a different way.
I'm setting up the entire studio. I'm doing all this prep and you're sprinting in here, hot mess express, as you would say.
As per usual.
And sometimes we don't get 1 second to be like, oh, here are the listener questions. So we're going to tease that one a little bit of like sort of the opposite, but it's going to touch on a lot of things we're about to talk about because you're right. It's a much smaller percentage, but it does exist. other factors that are sort of contributing here to seasonal depression? What comes to mind?
Yeah. So interestingly, and I think this might just be a US thing. I'm not saying that this necessarily contributes or is the sole reason behind anyone's seasonal depression, but I think it's worth noting that the holidays for some people are very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
It brings up a lot of family dynamics for some people, which either aren't very healthy, brings up a lot of grief for people, or there is, no contact boundaries, things like that, that for some people, it's very triggering. It brings up financial stress for certain aspects, right? Of buying gifts for people or that pressure. So there are different factors, especially again in the US with our holidays and how they kind of coincide with the winter months, that can bring up additional stressors and triggers. So I think that's another factor that a lot of times we don't talk about or the research doesn't exactly highlight, but is worth noting. Other factors, I guess, would be definitely the light, like we've talked about.
I'm glad you brought this up because the psychological factors, my brain wasn't even thinking about them, but you're absolutely right. Holidays, stress goes up for many people.
Mm-hmm.
Financial things come up for many people, and grief comes up. The expectations around holidays, you can see, again, a lot of variability of,
Mm-hmm.
I have to do this, I have to do that, or I have to make this perfect.
Yeah.
A lot of those things can come out for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that psychological impact. It's so funny because you see variability here because holidays can be protective for some people, but then
Totally.
again, there's the part of the population that's like financially brings up a lot of stress. It makes me, question where I am in my life, especially
Mm-hmm.
throw in New Year's.
Right.
Whole nother episode on that coming up. But yeah, to pivot to a biological one, lack of movement.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think that brings up other factors even under that category, right? Of like certain people that do outdoor activities or enjoy those types of activities, probably less motivated to do that when you are in either snowy conditions, right? Like you can't really run in the same capacity or ride your bike in the same capacity. A lot of those different pieces kind of confound, right?
Absolutely. And this conversation I have with so many of my clients is like, let's start thinking now.
Mm-hmm.
I started having this conversation in August because
Let's prep.
like, I'm getting ready. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's start thinking now. What's our winter activity?
Mm-hmm.
AKA, what's getting us out of the house? Huge bonus if it gets us moving.
Right.
But what's at least getting us out of the house?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love a new activity.
Yeah.
Let's cultivate it together. What are we interested in here?
Mm-hmm.
Snowshoeing, amazing. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to mind.
First one.
Is it the one with the tennis rackets?
The one that you strap tennis rackets to your feet, I'm pretty sure. Dog sledding.
Gosh. Yeah. The tobogganing.
What even is that?
A toboggan, I think, is that long wooden one.
Oh.
We're terrible Northerners. We're so bad. This is why we got
We
banished.
do not represent well.
This is why we got banished down to South Florida. Can't even represent at all.
Can't hang.
Ice fishing. I'm thinking of the most like cliche things, but truly, like snowboarding got me through the winters, and going indoor skateboarding. There's a lot of indoor skateboard parks, especially for me, like growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. Such a godsend.
Yeah.
You're getting out, you're moving. You're planning now. What is the thing that's going to get me out of the house? Because to tie in a bit of the light exposure, even if it's cloudy, if you're outside, you are getting light exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Know that.
Yeah.
The light is there. It might not look like it, but it's there. And I think that's something that goes really underrated is You going on that snowy walk, you're getting light exposure.
Mm-hmm.
'Tis good for you.
Unless you fall. Don't do that.
Don't fall. Shuffle your feet.
Just shuffle slowly.
The dark ice, the hidden ice, as it
Yeah.
were, in different places. But the movement's a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
The light's a big factor.
Yeah. I swear movement was the saving grace for me
Yeah,
when I still lived there.
What did you do?
I went to the gym like every day.
That's right.
Every day. Like
Yeah.
that was the one and only thing that I swear kept any shred of sanity in my body during the winter months. And yeah, it just was something that even on like a social level, you know, if I went to the gym at the same time each day, I would see the same kind of people. And whether you like actually have conversations with people or not, smiling at people, waving at people like that you see every day, there was some social aspect to it. But on top of it, it was like I could walk on a treadmill if it was snowy outside, or I could, you know, do whatever else I wanted to do at the gym, even if it was 20 minutes, 30 minutes that I went for. I was doing something, one, that was out of the house, and two, that was physical movement, and it was getting some of those endorphins flowing for me that I wasn't getting otherwise.
The socialization part, huge.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes people equate, you know, holiday season and that time of year with more socialization. But you can have those moments of like sort of around a certain holiday,
Mm-hmm.
but then the in between far less.
Right.
You're not going to so and so's pool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting out and doing those weekly walks with the bestie. What's the plan?
Right.
That's what I want you to take away from this episode is like, this
Plan
is dropping early October for a reason. What's the plan for the socialization?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still going to book club? Are you like, no, it's too snowy out there, so I'm not going anymore? Okay, but what's the plan?
Right.
Because if you're thinking right now, you're like assessing how we feel. Of course, there's going to be variability. Thinking about from behavioral perspective, what's your life right now?
Mm-hmm.
And what's it going to look like January 15th?
Right. Yeah. Did you notice that like after the holidays that it felt even harder in the winter?
Listen, we're not judgmental, but this is why I say all the time, the worst birthday months are January and February. Terrible birthday months. If you're out there and your birthday's in January or February. But if I'm going to argue against myself for a moment, those birthdays are needed.
Yeah.
So maybe it's opposite to some degree, but I'm just like,
need some excitement during those months.
When I think about January and February, like I can feel it in my body of like, oh,
yeah.
There is nothing about January and February, like no morsel of my body. And again, people love January and February down here in South Florida.
Yeah.
I still feel that way. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. For some reason, January always feels like it's 3 months long.
Oh, don't even get me started about January this year. January 2025.
Literally felt like it was an eternity. Would not end.
It's the longest decade of my life. In my life in the United States of America. But the hangover from the holidays is real. You pack up the decorations, the lights. Truly, people financially can be like, crap.
Right.
Spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
Traveled, bought some gifts, whatever. The sales got me.
Yeah.
I think the hangover effect into, again, January is so real.
Yeah, agreed. And there's so much pressure, I think, in January, given New Year's and all of that, that there is just this, collective pressure. But I feel like even March for me was always like, I feel like winter has been here for an eternity. Like I am so ready for spring that, just felt so long.
March in Northeast Ohio is when you started to get the cracks, aka the sun's like cracking through the clouds, And I was doing, especially through high school, I was doing track and field.
Mm.
So, I mean, we were out there freezing,
Yeah.
but like that sun would just slap you on that. What is it? What is a track made of? The
Blacktop?
rubbery. I'm blanking in this
Yeah.
moment. That rubbery material. You know what tracks are made of? that, that rubbery material. But the sun would just like.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And again, a lot of people feel that way though. That sort of March is this month of like slush.
Yes.
And it's not nice winter.
Yeah.
And it's almost more like I don't want to go out there. But
Yeah.
the earth is tilting back, right?
There's like some hope that hopefully spring will be here sooner rather than later.
We start to get the tilt back of sunlight and a little bit of brightness. But these things are so important to reflect about. And I think the older you get, there is this privilege of being able to assess yourself across many years to know what months.
Right.
I know for me, January, like I can't think of a year where January I was like, yeah, this is my month. Like it's just survive and get through. And again, plan and think about if you're going to be a little lower after the holidays and start of the year, you know, what is it you're going to be needing?
Right. Do you feel like that in every place that you've lived, or do you feel like that has been influenced depending on the weather and the climate?
If I'm going to sell South Florida, it's far better here. For me. Yeah. You know, we're going to get into the summer of South Florida here in a few minutes. But for me, it truly is a night and day experience. Because when it's 11 a.m. and we're on the beach looking across that teal water, you know, on New Year's Day, I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Listen, we're there in our cheap lawn chairs. We're not on a yacht. We can't afford that. But we're just on our crappy little lawn chairs looking across that teal water on January 1st. And you're like, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Something feels better than, some of the other places that we've both lived.
Yeah, it certainly is better. The amount of activities you can do.
Right.
We hop on our bikes through the wintertime down here. People are getting mad listening to this. Some people are. Again, not all glitz and glam. Cost of living.
Yeah.
And when we get into our listener question, we'll do a deeper dive. For you, what is it similar?
Yes, it's interesting for me having the experience of living out in Colorado because I did have seasons again.
Right.
Like I had winter, I had snow, I had fall, I had all the things. And I did notice a difference between living out in Colorado versus when I lived in New York because, again, the sunlight was very different and it was much more mild in terms of the weather and the swings throughout the day because it was a drier climate. So even if it was like the swings of temperature throughout the course of one day could be like 30 plus degrees. So I like distinctly remember there was this one day where it snowed and then the next day it was 90 degrees and we were at the pool. It was wild. So like on any given day it could snow and then be 60 degrees by the afternoon. So it just felt like there was more variation and so much more sunlight. Like we didn't have the months of gray and overcast and just like cold rain. So I definitely noticed a difference being in Denver versus New York. So climate has a lot to do with just the feeling.
We're really selling those light lamps.
I know.
We got no sponsorships
We need to be
on the light
sponsored.
lamps whatsoever. People are Googling them as we speak. But yeah, could I think about what are the things that I experienced that like buffer or with my clients? If there is something specific in the winter months that almost is just a winter activity, those people I feel like thrive.
Yes.
And again, I'm so biased, and it's been years now since I've snowboarded, but snowboarding,
Mhm.
skiing, they also got ski blading, which I often try to get people to do because I feel like it's the easiest to pick up. It's
Mhm.
like they're very short skis, and it's like ice skating or rollerblading
I
down the
really need to
mountain.
try that.
You would pick it up since you're an ice skater, you would pick it up so fast.
Yeah, I've sadly never been skiing or snowboarding,
You're
which is
missing out.
like
The thing
not
about those
okay.
activities that sucks is it's insanely expensive.
Yeah.
Like absurd. Like a lift ticket or a season pass. Is it worth the investment? I think any like snowboarder skier will tell you yes.
Mhm.
But is it it's so expensive. But
Yeah.
even like inner tubing, sledding, these sort of things
Mhm.
of like, can you get into a specific winter activity? Is that possible for you?
Yeah. It's so interesting because even talking about some of these activities, it's like thinking back on my like childhood, some of my favorite memories are during winter like months and
Oh
activities like
yeah.
big snowstorms
Oh
and
yeah.
like nor'easters that we got where the snow was piled higher than I was tall and going sledding and those types of things. I think it's just, yeah, the duration of that can definitely get to people for sure. But having some of those moments and those core, like key childhood memories, I'm like, yeah, a lot of those were in the winter months. So pros and cons, obviously. And it also, I think, depends on what it is that you gravitate towards,
Right.
right? So, like, I have these conversations obviously all the time with clients about different months and what works for what people and what they gravitate towards. I have plenty of clients who are like, I love the winter. I hate the heat. Like, I
Mm,
cannot wait until summer is over.
right.
I love the winter. I love the cold. I thrive in those freezing cold months. And I'm like, can't relate, but love that for you.
Hard pass for me, but good for you.
Fantastic. I love that for you. For me, not so much. So I think that there is something, within each person and individual differences that like we are just drawn to a certain climate or weather type that feels best for each one of us.
We're going to get in our listener questions here in a moment to dive deeper into that. But I totally agree. And this, again, there's privilege to be able to move around and live different places. And even if you're not going to pick up and move, it's really taking stock in like in the how many years you've lived.
Mhm.
What months do you get that uh-oh
Yeah.
reaction? And it's time to plan for those, whatever they
Mhm.
might be. But in some, at least in the winter side of things, we know light exposure,
Mhm.
movement, socialization. What am I forgetting?
Any source of vitamin D.
Vitamin D, which again, and reading the research, for some people, the supplementation certainly makes a difference.
Mhm.
So vitamin D is cheap, relatively low side effects. Consult your doctor if you have any questions.
Mhm.
But a lot of people
Yep.
supplementing throughout the winter months for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's get into these listener questions. Why not?
I'm excited, especially since I have absolutely zero prep for any of these. So,
Well, there's a little bit of reason. A mysterious person going by only the letter K said, on a scale of 10 out of 10, how perfect is Yaki?
I love this question.
I have no idea who K could be or why someone referred to you as Yaki. It certainly isn't your best friend. Yaki is an absolute 100 out of 10.
Wow, babe. Brownie points for you.
The Jackie I experience on the daily,
10
variability.
out of 10 would not recommend this.
Love that. My mom snuck in a question like a few weeks ago, and I should have read it on the episode. I can't even remember what it was. Mom, if you're listening, send in another question. All right, Emily up in Maine. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on non-winter seasonal depression. I have found change in seasons to be difficult when it comes to other factors than what we associate with winter episodes. For me, I expect the cold, dark, long New England winter that I've grown up with. It's more of a motivator to look ahead for me. I pay a lot of attention to and celebrate the increasing daylight, later sunsets over the course of January and February. I'm finding instead that other times and seasons I am more prone to depressive episodes. Spring is hard, but maybe for similar reasons. Having been looking forward to and anticipating good weather and having to deal with all that comes the rain, the gloomy, the mud season. And the back to school season is even harder. I work in a school, by the way, with transition out of summer schedules and activities. Thoughts?
Yeah, that actually is not uncommon.
And this is the overall reflection. We talked a lot about sort of the winter, but the overall reflection is if there is a recurrent time of year for you, that again, you think about March, you think about back to school, August, September, and you're like, ugh, get curious about that.
Yes.
Because you were just touching on sort of the early spring in the north. Oh my, like I can picture that muddy, slushy snow and just being like, ew. What do I want to do in that? It's terrible for winter activities.
Yeah.
Sun's still barely out. You're like, no, thank you. Is there a season that is that way for you that's not winter?
You know what's interesting? I guess that's kind of shifted depending on where I lived. I don't notice it as much now living in South Florida for as long as we have. Do I miss having some seasons and some variation and fall and winter months? Like, yes. And that's why, I go different places if and when I can. But yeah, winter was always the big crash for me. So I always knew that. And that was kind of to be expected. So again, it's different for each person. And I think that's a good thing to get curious about for yourself of I tend to feel not so great in these months. And again, that can vary depending on person.
The research says that 10% of people with seasonal type are non-winter. So that's not 10% of the population, but people who meet criteria for major depressive seasonal type, 10% are, which again, decent amount of people. And that's who meet criteria.
Right.
People who sort of have what would parallel the winter blues, but summer blues, which we live in South Florida.
Right.
That's what people experience down here. The sweltering chokehold of 95% humidity.
Yes.
Again, we don't live in a dry climate, which again, that dry climates have temperatures that are like 120.
Right.
If you look at what the highest temperature is ever in Miami, again, I'm going to look this up after, but it's like 90 something. I don't believe it's ever reached 100 because humidity keeps temperatures lower.
Yeah.
But humidity is inescapable.
It feels so different because, again, comparing 90 degrees when I lived in Denver versus 90 degrees in the summer here, 90 degrees there was stunning.
So wild to think about that. Yeah.
Here it feels oppressive.
It from the moment the door cracks open to go outside,
you're just wet.
When I tell you your car is a sauna, you don't need to buy all these saunas that people are doing. Just come down here and go in your car.
Yeah.
You will start sweating immediately, full. But when you think about what we're talking about, it's like people are avoiding now going outside.
Right. Who wants to run in 95 degrees with 95% humidity?
The activity level, like if you ever, when
significantly
you go,
decreases.
decreases for sure, but if you go out early morning and
Mm.
take my son a lot to, sunrise, because he loves going out there. He loves waking up early. God help
What
him
is
that the
that like?
two of us hate early morning.
Poor kid.
Anywho, the amount of people running, biking, doing activities
Mhm.
before the sun is rising through the summer, it looks like you're watching like a zombie like horror movie of like vampires and people just like flying around before the sun rises and they're like melted to the ground. You have to. And
Right.
people who live in very hot climates are like nodding, listening to this. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna do something outside, you better do it before 9 a.m.
Mhm.
because otherwise you absolutely feel miserable.
Yeah. It's interesting. So when I was looking things up, I'll pull it up right now. Um, there actually was a study that the rates and the percentages were actually completely the same and kind of flipped for certain warmer climates. So there was a study done in Australia that was like a tropical northern area of Australia. Um, 9% reported summer pattern depression
Mm,
versus 1.7% for winter. And that's a complete reversal of like the pattern
right,
seen
right.
because of the excessive heat, humidity being key triggers.
Because then you think about those factors. There's plenty of sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going and getting it.
Right.
You
Because you're locked up inside because it's too hot.
and what's your socialization?
Right.
What's your movement? It's the same sort of factors, but triggered
Mm-hmm.
sort of the opposite direction.
Right.
It makes sense. That's why if you can keep these factors in your mind, the varying levers to pull
Mm-hmm.
of movement, socialization, can I still get some sunlight?
Mm-hmm.
It can make a difference. And I also just looked up the highest temp ever in Miami is 98, which
Wow.
people will think Miami and they're like, what? But
Yeah.
again, humidity versus dryness. Anywho, but yes, to your point of people experience this at varying times of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another factor that kind of comes to mind for me is climate change.
Right. It's so fun. I was just talking about this where assessing where you live, if you've lived somewhere for a while, over the
Mm-hmm.
course of the last 10 years or so, like what variations you've noticed
Mm-hmm.
and how they've impacted you. Because it's so funny because like when I was in Oklahoma, like back to back years, they were talking a lot about how some of the tornado patterns had shifted
Mm-hmm.
and that there used to be these defined tracks and now they're like moving further south and that's impacting sort of where people live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about it, the thing we've talked about a lot about living in South Florida, it used to rain every single day in the summer, which some people were like, oh, that sounds bad. It was good.
Yeah.
Could have helped break up the swelteringness.
And it was only for like 15 minutes.
Super short rain showers all through summer.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've had several years in a row where in the summer, at least on our side of South Florida,
Mm-hmm.
we are like in a drought.
Yeah.
It's not raining at all. And it feels even more sort of sweltering.
Yeah.
But these sort of factors is like you could be used to, and there can be lore with childhood and stuff. Like we
Mm-hmm.
used to get all this huge snowstorms and now we don't, and
Mm-hmm.
try to look at the data to see if that matches. But I feel like that's a big factor. It's like, again, you can assess in any place you've lived for a while. It's like what you've noticed sort of year to year with climate change.
Right. Totally. And I think this might have an impact on some of the stats moving forward, just in terms of what months are kind of triggering for different people. And who knows, that might impact some of the rates depending on places and how climate has shifted.
And the area you choose to live.
Yeah.
Because there can be variability year to year, but it's different when something becomes sort of predictable. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the part of it being climate change and not just this variability that peaks up now and again.
Right.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation, and I love having it because a lot of people experience this.
Mm-hmm.
Most in the winter when days are sort of shorter and light is sort of harder to get, but as we talked about, can be the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Or can be sort of other times of years where maybe cultural stress factors tend to rear its head. I know one thing. Come January 1st, you're going to catch me out on that beach. And I'll probably still be like, oh, hangover from the holidays and all the ways, but I'll be maximizing my sunlight as much as I can.
Definitely.
But no tanning beds.
No. 10 out of 10. Do not recommend.
Again, you heard it here.
I did not suggest that.
It's going to make the episode, but luckily we prefaced 100 times that we don't recommend. But we do recommend experimenting with things. And I think, again, that's sort of the curiosity that goes into and planning now, because the hardest thing is when you're already in a lower mood state and not feeling good to have to think, plan, and on the fly adapt. People do it. It's just so much easier when you think about it now and you're like, oh, how do I typically feel first week in January?
Right. And then it feels a bit more empowering going into those months, especially if the option to move to a different climate is not really on the table, like it isn't for most people, right? So having that feeling of I have a plan in place, I feel empowered to, you know, really implement some of these things on the front end and not just when they actually, you know, start hindering my life, so I can try to get ahead of that and prevent some of those extreme or intense symptoms from emerging.
So well said. So true. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, as always, right here on Drop In. Next week, we got a guest episode. So stoked about it. But again, we love a rate, a review, a comment. Drop it in the group chat. Tell everyone to get prepared if it relates to them. We'll see you next time right here on Drop In.
Bye.
Bye.